All right. Hello, everyone. We are thrilled to have you join today on the Johnson Grossnickle Associates JGA webinar. It's our live demonstration of our new product, Acuity Darts. Thank you so much for joining us. I am thrilled to be here, joined by our terrific partner, Scott Okander from Carnegie. I am, as I said, Lee Ernst. I'm our COO and senior consultant at the firm. We are a national philanthropic consulting firm working with organizations on strategy for philanthropy, fundraising goals, and innovative data products, which we'll learn more about soon. Scott, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Okander. I'm partner and chief leadership strategist here at Carnegie. I'm one of the original founders of the company. We work with about 750 universities nationwide, and are one of the leading marketing strategy firms for higher ed. So good to see you all, and look forward to hearing your questions and hearing your reactions to Acuity Darts. Lee, back to
Great.
you.
Thanks so much, Scott. Well, we are eager to dive into a product that you see on the screen, Acuity Darts. This has been several years in the making, and we're excited to showcase one of our beta clients' work, Socoa, an organization in Indianapolis where JGA is headquartered. We came together, Scott and I, Carnegie and JGA, several years ago. And the driving force behind that is really what you see on the screen here, right? We saw several needs in our marketplace and advancement. And the question became, how do we address those? As you'll hear soon, we both have a history with Acuity and with Darts. So we're blending a little bit of old and new. But what we had not done before, and what we truly believe as a market disruptor, is how do we start to address the problems here in front of us in a thoughtful and innovative way? Many of you will probably feel some pain points here on the first piece, the great wealth transfer that's occurring in our nation. We know over $100 trillion is going to be coming through or passing through, right, to the next generation. What does it look like for your organization to be thoughtfully and strategically thinking about what is your message? How do you engage those individuals, those Generation Xers or other individuals that will be, quote, coming into this wealth? How do you know who they are? And how do you strategically think about your staff time to engage them? And what is the strategy behind that? What about our other generations, millennials? What will be their asks, their requests, their requirements in communication? And again, how do we take so much data that we see in our own field, in the nonprofit sector? How do we take this data and really start to translate it to address these problems in front of us? We also see the need. If I saw all you on the screen, we'd probably have hands up in the air. The need for segmentation and personalization, right? Long gone are the days of a mass appeal where everyone receives the same type of messaging and everyone receives the same type of communication. So much of our work in higher ed or healthcare, arts and culture grapples with this question. How are we being thoughtful with the data we have to translate it into personalized, segmented efforts? Scott, do you want to walk us through a few of the remainder challenges that we've
Yeah.
seen?
Yeah, sure, Lee. Thanks. And those are really good points. And the segmentation and the personalization in particular, thinking about a Generation Z, a millennial or an Xer. I mean, these audiences are much more savvy with the way that they approach communications. And so, in talking to advancement leaders across the country, I hear a lot of their pain that they have a lot of data, but they don't have a way to implement. And so, kind of the future of fundraising in many respects in advancement is going to be in this area of how do we take data, rich data, and find a way to actionably implement that data. And so with Acuity Darts, you're going to see that we've thought a lot about that. We're also seeing that the future generations, especially the younger generations, are much more digitally savvy. We see huge increases in the focus on digital in areas like Day of Giving. But we may see a future in years ahead where digital is a mainstay strategy for fundraising operations. But again, how do you create a system with that, with those channel strategies that's specific to the audience, because that's what they're going to expect. And all of that then culminates into how we think about customer relationship management tools, and how they must evolve to be able to handle a much more rich data environment, a much more specific and surgical segmentation environment with personalized marketing. So these trends are really exciting, and also challenging for most of us. But the exciting part is that the capability to truly engage with prospects and donors in a way that is specific to them is now really at our doorstep, and it's a matter of for us to just action those strategies to be able to take advantage of the data that's out there.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, and if you think about that in totality, the main question driver is changing. It's if you want to be specific with somebody, you really need to be able to answer this question: how do you know what to say to somebody? How do you know what to say to them that's authentically attractive to them in that structure? And so much of the sort of future fundraising strategies are going to be, how do we get to data that can tell us the answers to these questions before we ever even talk to somebody, which is a big shift for fundraising and advancement as we move forward. And so for us, if Lee, if you want to transition, to when we talk about Acuity Darts, we realized that in order to answer that question, how do you know what to say to someone, you were going to need these four key ideas. You were going to need to know the wealth screening data, the things that help us understand how to successfully delineate various aspects of capacity and donor capacity. But in addition to that wealth screening data, which is sort of the entry level of data, in many respects, we need to understand engagement. We need to know who is engaged and to what degree and to what aspect they're engaged. In addition to that, really we need to understand demographic data at a much more refined level. So instead of just understanding maybe a home address or a pattern of history, we might need to look at hundreds to even multi-hundreds of variables to really understand the specific demographics of an individual. And most importantly of all, out of that, we need to understand the psychographic identification of a prospect. So who is this person on a personality level? What are their behaviors and desires and attitudes towards certain things that help drive the ability to personalize communications to them? So Acuity Darts does just that. And Lee, if you want to take us through a little bit more, it would be great to kind of talk about it.
Great. That's a perfect setup, Scott. Thank you. One thing that I think I have to remind ourselves, Scott, because we've been working together now, talking to what I don't even want to quantify it, hundreds of people about this product, asking for their thoughts and feedback, is that we're really blending old and new. JGA created Acuity, our proprietary product, with donor search over 4 years ago. It has been in the market. We have a strong track record of really thinking about how to use Acuity as a data tool to translate your action into success. Scott and team at Carnegie, Darts has been implemented for over a decade in the marketplace. And so the beauty is we are now able to take our learned history, what's worked well, how have we refined both, and merge them into one.
So true.
That's, I think, the exciting part of this. How does it look when both come together? And so what we really are aiming to answer, as Scott has said earlier with Acuity Darts, are two key questions. Who do you engage? And how do you engage them based on personalized messaging? How can we start to look at your data and translate it from the very top, if you will, of what we all know is a lovely giving pyramid, all the way through the mid-level to the annual fund? And then how do we apply customized messaging to those individuals based on personality, motivation, and their own desires as well? So this is where the fun really starts. As we had noted earlier, we have been unbelievably fortunate to work with Socoa, an organization in Indianapolis, one of our beta test clients early on, to start to look through Acuity Darts. And so what we're going to do now is really walk you through the key elements of this of the report. And what you'll see here is several years of back and forth editing, tweaking, refining. So I'm going to start off a few minutes on the acuity analysis. If we think about the slide, it's the who to engage. Acuity will look at your entire database, every single prospect, every donor that you have. And the key focus of Acuity is to say, how do we put a segmented strategic approach to all of your data, all of your prospects? Acuity will customly, or it will segment your data. Who are your best donors and those engaged with you, your top donors, and then those that are the most engaged with you. Again, what we found year after year was the data is terrific in our field. How do we start to translate that into action? And how do we start to get a really good ROI on this data in the field? The key element with Acuity is, Scott has said, the well screening is an entry point. How do we go 10 steps farther? How do we go 30 steps farther and really start to unlock your potential? It's with engagement variables. So we're blending how your donors, your prospects give to you and how they engage with you. Are they a board member? Have they attended events? Are they on an advisory committee? I'll be honest, I think the secret here is each engagement variable is going to depend on your organization, because the way they engage with you has to be a customized approach compared to another organization. So we're blending that well screening and the personalized engagement variables. As that analysis is done on your prospects, what comes back to you is a dashboard. How do we start to organize your prospects to then eventually then have a report that will show you step by step how to engage and how best to engage? They will be broken down into different segments. And the key piece, what we've heard over and over from our clients over the years, is this allows us an actionable plan. My prospect researcher now has additional tools needed. Our major gift officers are now using their time more effectively. We now have better ROI on our staff because we're strategically putting staff in front of the right people. The last thing I want to talk about with Acuity before I have Scott talk about darts is prospect management. I would say everyone on this call is probably going to shake their head yes when we say, how do you make the investment for additional staff, whether it be to your board or other leaders at your institution? We have to have the ROI, right? We have to have the numbers that back it. The Acuity analysis will look at your best prospects, all of your donors, all of the people that are engaged with you, and we compare it to your portfolio. Who is currently engaged in a relationship with staff and who is not? We have found an average of 65% newly identified prospects through the Acuity analysis and darts work, which is critical, right, as we think about the work moving forward. So we take Acuity analysis and identify and segment your top donors, and then we look at what to say to them. And so, Scott, would you like to walk us through the psychometric darts?
Absolutely. And one thing I love about the Acuity is just the ability to look at the level of engagement and to understand how many prospects are out there that truly do have engagement that are also not under management. Such an amazing opportunity for major gift operations and planned giving operations. One thing that I also love about Acuity Darts is the fact that this is a unifier between the annual fund and engagement programs and the major gift and planned giving operation. Instead of thinking about that, the donor in a status bucket like, oh, they're a planned giving prospect or they're a major gift operation, what psychometric darts does is it actually talks about and unifies the way that you engage that prospect, whether they're in an annual fund operation or whether they're a major gift prospect. And something I really love about this product is how it comes together and provides a unifying thesis and approach for data in all the aspects. So when we talk about darts, We are talking about archetypes. And so now Carnegie didn't invent archetyping. That dates back to Plato and Aristotle, so a little before my time, although my age might start to look like that. But we did invent this approach that's peer-reviewed research approach to marketing and communication and psychology in the space. And so we use a color system for describing an archetype. And what archetypes are really just positive social personality types that everyone can identify and understand and associate then with not only themselves, but with other people. And so, for example, when we talk about yellow, the yellow personality, we're talking about innovative types. So people that are driven by intelligence and brilliance and new ideas and inventing things in the lab versus, say, a red type might be somebody that's driven by the energy in the room, the motivation, the enthusiasm, the excitement of a scenario versus, say, an orange might be a craftsman, an artist, and driven by the sort of artistry and design thinking that is so much driven by a creator. And so we use these color ideas as ways to describe human personalities that are very positive and orient people in the way that they approach the world. And so if you can kind of imagine a fundraising operation where you could think about a prospect, a donor prospect that might have a specific personality, you would then know quite a bit more about how to engage that prospect. If they're driven by leadership and power, it would change how you might approach that prospect or that donor versus somebody who's driven by care and supporting others. And that would be the difference between blue personality and a purple personality. And so if you flip to the next slide, we use these we use these archetypes and a way of gathering data to be able to project the personality of every donor in your donor pool, whether they're a very early engager or whether they're one of your biggest capacity major gift prospects under management. We have the ability with Acuity Darts to project not only capacity and engagement, but also the personality and the demographic profile of that prospect. And this takes the concept of personas to a completely different level because it's specific information about this prospect that is driven by personality elements, not just sort of donor characteristics. And so here you see the example from SECOA, the Mission Mavens, which represent a certain segment of their donor population. And the mission Mavens are driven in personality terms to be this sort of purple archetype, which is about caring, supportive, sort of selfless behavior. But they also have in their personality, in a major way, this sort of red idea that I talked about earlier, this sort of high energy, motivational, enthusiastic sort of personality type. And the third sort of personality is a sort of rebellious, breaking conventions, breaking status quo, silver. And so we see that these mission mavens tend to be this personality more than any other type of personality. And they've told us this through both a qualitative and a quantitative research project that we did that took about, sort of 10 to 12 weeks to sort of get the data. And then through that process, we can actually project personality across their entire operation. You can also see here in the middle, these donors have told us that they're interested, while their personality is in this order, purple, red, silver, they're interested in copy that has high energy more than selflessness. And they're also interested in a little bit of an adventure and question answering. That's the green idea. They've also told us that their image preferences then revert back to purple. So they want this sort of combination of high energy, selflessness in the way that they see information and the way that they approach the world. That's super valuable for us to know, because then we can tailor communications to those donors that are in this this pool of donors in Dart 1, if you will, to be able to be much more specific to the type of content that they would be interested and attracted to. You can see that when we go to the next slide, you can see a description here on the left. You can also see we have some very key communications insights. We can see how much they use digital platforms. We can see how they seek information. Are they using search engines, or are they relying on other people? for this, and then what level of acceptable frequency are they willing to accept in terms of the fundraising operation. So this particular group, Mission Mavens, they're very high on that last one, that communications frequency. They're willing to take quite a bit of information from our client Sequoia in this space. And then the last thing I want to show you here is the way the darts break down. One thing that we talked about earlier in the actionable data is the reality of segmentation and personalization is the future. But one thing that is challenging, and we do hear from our clients how challenging it is that managing a ton of segments is very, very taxing, both on the human side and just the pure complexity side of running a sort of highly segmented fundraising operation. What Acuity Darts does that's so magical is that these psychographic darts tend to be much more patterned than we frankly even originally thought they would be when we started this process over a decade ago. But it turns out that when we find somebody engaged or associated with a particular entity like a university, the number of sort of characteristics that start to become a pattern is much higher. So you see here in the Mission Mavens, that represents over 30% of all of the donors in the entirety of a fundraising operation, with the considerable multitude of different ways of engagement. That is a huge segment. So for an advancement operation that's thinking about how do I segment in a way that's something I can sustain and control, having this powerful psychographic segment that's representing almost a third of all donors is super valuable, because I don't have to use that many segments to get to the ability to be specific with everybody. And so just to kind of illustrate the finer point of this, if we go to the next slide, you can see here also just a few of the factors that we're able to look, and this is where Acuity and DART starts to merge a little bit more. We see the kind of charitable contribution factors that Mission Mavens are associated with. They tend to be personal causal relationship with their donation. They tend to want longer standing impact or community impact over personal personal notification or notoriety over a factor. And you can see here on the right the kind of engagement that they're taking on as well, in terms of some of the different things they're involved in and like to be involved in. And then the last thing I'll show you is just the breakdown of the darts here, where you see, how different the psychographic is across the different segments. So you can see that those Mission Mavens have that sort of high energy approach, and that's how we've recommended to talk with them. So focus on motivation, enthusiasm, bringing energy to the communications, versus those Dart 2s are really much more about the selfless giving, and the sort of the sharing, collaboration, sort of contribution. Whereas Dart 3s, they're about power and leadership, and they want the notoriety and the recognition and the expansion of the offer to be part of a leadership structure for them personally. And then Dart 4s are really about innovation. So imagine a world where in the future you could actually manage your entire portfolio of segmentation on 4 segments, but being able to have the specificity of the Acuity product to be able to know who to engage and to focus on the different segments in a way that's very powerful moving forward. As we say, Acuity Darts brings really truly actionable data into your operation for some of you, maybe the first time. You can see the breakdown here when you look at these different acuity levels and the different darts. When you start to see them threaded here, you can see, okay, hey, Mission Mavens represent the 50% of all of our Acuity 1s. We have less of the Dart 4, the innovators in that Acuity 1 platform. That could be a function of how we communicate with certain aspects of those populations, and we can actually tailor communications over the time to start to create a new level of engagement. And that's really the design of Acuity Darts as a whole. It
And this
does
is
just get to,
slide,
oh
Scott.
yeah, you want to jump in here? Yeah, go ahead.
This is my favorite slide, to your point, being able to show that integration, right? When we think of all the different data points, how do we start to have that roadmap? Because what Acuity Darts, as you've said, Scott, not only starts to show this integration, but then we're going to complement this with a roadmap, right? What are those specific recommendations that show if half of your donor base is an Acuity one and a Dart one, what do we do with that? How do we start to look at that from a communication? And what I like here is that, as you were saying, Scott, it starts to show the true integration. And it's amazing how the data points kind of work themselves together, right? Into key groups. So please go ahead, but I wanted to make that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous point that we realized early on that Acuity was a very successful on its own set of data, and Darts also was very successful. But the magic happened when Acuity and Darts came together, because being able to cross-thread this way created a truly actionable and strategic approach to what is a very challenging time for fundraising. We have a time where gift dollar amounts, individual gift dollar amounts are going up and donor participation is going down. That doesn't lead us to an end that is good for this industry. And yet Acuity Darts is a way to start to reverse that trend and go in a different direction, because we know the next generation of fundraisers is going to want givers is going to want specificity. They're going to want personalization and segmented communications, because that's what they've grown up in, and that's what they've come to expect. And we need to transition our strategies to be able to meet that new audience in a powerful way. And just as valuable to meeting the new audience is being able to communicate with everyone in our pool something very specific that meets their attraction and their personality in a powerful way.
Do you want to
And
go
so
to
just to
that?
put the last finer point on it, I'm just going to show the map here. This is a sort of lovely chart, but the key idea here is that this is very specific to every donor in the pool. And so what you're seeing here is the location, the home address of every donor in the pool, whether they're a Dart 1 or a Dart 2, whether they're Acuity 1, Acuity 2. And so the idea is not that this is like the end product as much as it's a visualization to showcase how specific this data truly is, that we're able to say, hey, the person at this address on this street is a Dart 2, and they're also an Acuity 2. This person is an Acuity 1 and a Dart 3. And so we have then this threaded data structure that enables you to know exactly who to engage, but most importantly, combined with how to engage that prospect. So if you don't have them under management, or your relationship isn't as full as it used to be before COVID or whatever it might be, this gives you an actionable approach to target their attraction, to meet them in an authentic way that is, sort of honoring their personality and likely approach to the world, and to begin to engage them in a fully new way. So super exciting stuff. We hope you love this. We'll be happy to take any chat questions that are popped in. If you want to jump in on the Q&A, you're welcome to ask us anything. We'll leave you here. We'll sit here for a minute here and just leave you with this quote from Tarek Brown, the president and CEO of Socoa. We just, thank Socoa so much for their beta partnership. It's often hard to be a beta client. We're now past that stage and into a place where we feel very confident in how to approach this moving forward. But Socoa has been a tremendous partner for us, and we can't thank them enough.
Yeah. So,
And then while we wait, if there's any questions, I'll just end to say, we're excited to talk with anybody who wants to talk about how to implement this within their fundraising operation. You can see Lee and my conversation, our contact information here. And Lee, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I think that was really well said, Scott. This has been unbelievably fulfilling over these past few years, because we are able to see clearly a solution. to the different pain points that we are feeling, right, at Carnegie at JGA with our clients and the excitement that it's bringing. So please reach out if you're interested, to have ideas, to have questions. We'd love to talk to you more about it.